Welcome to the channel. I'm joined by Emilee Verduin. How is life, Emily?
It's good. It's great.
It's wintry, as we
Dark and
said.
rainy, but
Dark
it's
and
good
rainy.
otherwise. Yeah,
Well, if you can be happy when it's dark and rainy, you can be happy any day.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
you emailed me because you noticed I said something about entities, beings, um, different from the beings in time and space, let's say. And yeah, wanted to discuss some of that. I'm excited to do that. I'm not sure where to start this actually, because I mean, we can both share whether or not what we think of them, if we think they have reality, and then personal experience, and then can you trust your personal experience and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, I had reached out because you mentioned it in the last conversation we had, and it was sort of a passing
Mm,
remark almost. We flew by it, and I
yep.
was, what did you mean by that? Because not everybody will say things like that. It freaks a lot of people out. But then I haven't been watching much YouTube lately, but I happened to watch Peugeot and Rod Dreher talking about his new
Mhm.
book, Living in Wonder, and they were talking immediately about UFOs and demons, and I was like, oh, I had that conversation with Lucas. He said that thing. I still haven't found out what meant by that. I want to know. Um, and they went off into a lot, like they went off in a very particular direction, but it just made me wonder like what your experience was because I know I'm having
Yeah.
some weird things go on in that area. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what other people are like what other people have going on. So I really would like to hear,
All right.
compare notes.
I think a lot of people probably experience these things, but they don't know how to categorize it, and so they
Mhm.
just ignore it. So I think in dreams, there's times when they show up for me where I notice it's different than just a character. Like I have a lot of dream characters that I feel like, okay, they're depictions of people that I know, or um, they're unique to me. They're nothing beyond my personal. Um, well, I don't even want to say that about them, but there's a distinction. And sometimes there is an archetypal presence, something of a universal being that enters that I've heard other people speak about, perhaps, um, where I'm like, okay, this has some independent existence beyond myself. So if I would not exist, I think this would still exist.
Hmm.
Um, so that I've had in dreams, like I've had like this, I don't know how you call it, like an incuba or something, like a female spirit that tries to make love to you in some sorts, and you have to like fight it off.
Hmm.
That's something I've had. But a more profound experience with entities, I would say, is when I did psychedelics. Pretty much from the start, there were two beings that looked very similar, but I think they were masculine and feminine, or at least trying to represent themselves in that way. Um, their appearance was like they consisted of stars, which made them look like they didn't have a solid body. But I felt like they were doing that to make themselves appear uh, graspable to me. Like I felt like they were doing me a favor by appearing in that way. That's like
Yeah.
what I was convinced of when I was going through it. So they were like, yeah, sometimes I draw it with little dots. They consisted of little dots, but they were like semi-human shape. And they were just basically like my parents or something, but not my parents, like my parents, but like in the reality that I experienced, they felt like my parents in that. And I actually felt myself being born into that um, dimension. And so they were like super happy to see me. They were like, tearing up some sorts. They were like, oh, this is so sweet. He's getting to experience all this. And I was just being full of wonder and awe and not understanding because it was so far beyond my comprehension. And they were just like loving guides. That's what they felt like to me. Um, Now, before I encountered them, even or before I saw them visually represented, I felt a clicking with them, like some, an avatar when you have like the hair goes into the
Yeah, yeah, okay.
it connects. I had a visual image of that as well, but not with hair or anything, but like something else. I forgot what it is, but like a clicking, and that's when I was like connected to them, and then they
Wow.
basically guided me around. That's
Wow.
But this is the first time actually I put this into words because I've mentioned a lot of that experience, but never this specific aspect. So yeah, that's basically.
That's wild. Did they have a sort of character beyond I mean, was there anything more distinct than that? That is, I mean, it's kind of hard to put these things into
Yeah,
words sometimes, but did anything else kind of stand out?
I don't know, just felt like they represented wisdom and experience and like I could tell that they'd been there for a long time and that they were somehow connected to me.
Hmm.
Um, but there's not like real character traits that I could tell like he has this or they have that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Um, okay, so besides that though, you then did did the things that come in dreams happen only after that experience?
I think it's after that that I started taking it seriously. Um, like you dream a lot of things and you just like, okay, they're dreams. I was told throughout my life sometimes that I should ignore dreams, or other people would say you have to really pay attention to your dreams. Now I do something in between where like sometimes I'm like, okay, that might mean something.
Mhm.
Um, but I started dreaming extremely vividly after, was it after? Yeah, I think after that experience, especially. Um, like since I've become a bit more of a vivid dreamer. Also, I think because I write a lot of it down, or I have
Mhm.
done so in the past, that you just remember so much more that you find out. The first time I wrote a dream down, I was like, wow, this is like pages of stuff. But things, you forget things like this super
Mhm.
quick. And then throughout the day, maybe some things will come back to you, but there's so much there. And so I speculate that happened before as well, but that I just didn't have the eyes to see.
So why do you like, okay, because I dream, I've never seen anything, I don't see ghosts or apparitions or, I've never seen
Yeah.
anything happen in waking life, nothing moves around or whatever. Um, it's always in dreams. But why does it, I'm curious what makes it feel different than something that you're just dreaming, like that it's exists outside of you. Is there something in particular? Because I've had that feeling too. And you
Yeah.
just kind of know it, but I don't think I've talked about any to anybody
Yeah,
about that feeling.
that's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe because it makes you I don't know, there's a distinct character to an interaction you have with a known and an unknown in a dream, let's say. So I will like last night I had a really freaky dream. I'm just recalling it now, where I was fighting some sort of war with some sort of like I don't know, some sort of disease or something. I'm not sure what's going on. I even saw the guy who was instructing me at the school that I told you about, and he was like playing a character, and that all seemed quite familiar. Um, but sometimes in dreams, I will encounter an entity or a being where I'm like, okay, there's something outer worldly to this. Like even like in normal life, maybe sometimes you encounter that there's something outer worldly to something. Like when you're walking around, I've had that in a forest where something so meaningful happens. You're like, there's something beyond about
Hmm.
this, like a synchronicity is in Carl Jung's language. And I think when something like that happens in my dreams, I'm like, okay, that's something beyond. Maybe that does something. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to give language to it.
Yeah, yeah. Is it I'm sorry, I feel like
Oh,
I'm
good.
drilling you with questions, but is there a particularly like is it scary does it have a flavor to it, I guess? Is it like scary things? Is it just maybe all different kinds of things? Does it have a tone or anything like that? Because well, I guess because mine do, so I'm just wondering if there's something particular that comes up for you or something it's just sort of
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it really depends because I think archetypes come in many different forms and there are many different ones. And then the dreams that I have, the mind state that I will be in the dreams will also determine how I respond to them. So oftentimes in dreams, I'm extremely scared or I'm extremely angry or emotional, or like I'll have dreams where I wake up crying because my mom dies or whatever. Like those things all happen. And I think the emotional state I'm in when encountering anything, that definitely influences that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about what is this like for you because you're mentioning that there's different.
Yeah. Well, I don't see the funny thing about these things is they come up as in a dream and they come up there's no body, there's no person
Mm,
there. I just know something else is there. It's like a present, you feel a presence that's not you.
yeah.
Distinctly not you somehow. It's I don't know how to describe that, but if you've ever felt it, then you just know what that means. Um, and I don't ever see anything, but they sometimes touch me
Mm,
and I feel it.
mm,
Or they sometimes there's been a few like 3 or 4 dreams where I'm like levitated off the ground
yeah.
by something and um and it really freaks me out. I don't know if I've ever had one where it didn't really freak me out. There's just a degree of how freaked out it might make me. And then every time, if I start praying in the dream, I will start reciting the Lord's Prayer, or if
Mm.
I'm too scared, I have to say the Jesus Prayer because it's shorter and so I can remember it.
Yeah.
I think as soon as I do that, it will go away. It'll stop happening, which is weird. Because I well, I don't know. That's just a weird thing. And I know that that happens to my brother also. He separately told me. I was like, "Hey, has this ever happened to you?" He's like, "Oh yeah." And he recites like almost like whole exorcisms that happen. He's like
Within
uh
the dream?
yeah, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he'll like tell us like a figure like
Yeah.
in the name of, Jesus Christ, like leave and it will. It's like wow. Yeah, so he's having that happen also. And I know some other people have said that if they pray in dreams, something will go away. Um,
That's cool. I don't think I
it's
remember that I'm religious when I'm dreaming. I think I'm
I don't do that in real life. I don't like I was raised like Protestant. I don't cross myself. I don't
yeah,
like have a so it's really weird in dreams that it immediately comes up. I'm like, this is the only thing that's gonna work for sure.
yeah. That's in
Um, but I
I
don't see anything and they just touch me and then the praying works and there's a lot of levitating.
mm,
Um, which I don't know what to do with.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mentioned to you in the email I said I just had this dream about something happening, which is why I was like it was very,
Okay.
relevant on my mind when I watched that video. And it was like a big pair of hands picking me up and levitating me, almost like a child, like how I would pick
Hmm.
up my son and be like up. Um, but then once that happened, and it wasn't scary. Actually, that one wasn't scary. It's usually scary. This wasn't scary. That happened, I could then will myself in the dream to up, like I could levitate off the ground, and people were scared. They were scared that they were seeing me do that. Um, and so that was really bizarre.
Oh,
And that wasn't scary, but it's just weird. There's like a cluster of things that this levitating
yeah.
thing is really weird and it's recurring, but there's also a thing that happens where I become lucid. And
Mm,
this has only been happening in the last 2 years. I wake up in my dream
yeah.
and then I go back and then I wake up again and I'll wake up multiple times in the dream and I'll be dreaming that I'm in my bed
Yeah.
sleeping.
Yeah.
And so I can no longer distinguish between reality and the dream.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I'm gonna wake up again.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got
Um,
that one. They're
yeah,
freaky.
and that can be really scary.
Yeah.
Not knowing what's going on and you feel like something's messing with you.
Mm,
Like being poked. I don't know, like something's purposefully like pay attention and then you wake up and you're like, am I awake now? Am I really awake? So those are like the things that all cluster together
mm.
with these things and I just don't know what to do with it.
Oh.
but I also know that when I'm afraid, it's worse. And one time I got angry
Yeah.
and I was like, get out of here, go. Just, I wasn't scared and it just immediately evaporated. And so it's like,
Mhm.
there's a thing it's like how do you react? Which is something that
Yeah.
you mentioned too. Yeah.
I've been wondering about that because this week I had this really scary dream where I was like, someone takes control of you and I couldn't scream. Like I tried to scream and I couldn't scream and like tried to pull me away. And then I willed myself out of the sleep. And like I woke up with like a heavy breath and everything. And then I was thinking the next day about it. And I was like, what if I just didn't do anything? Like what would have happened? Like realistically speaking, like if I would have let go, would that have been a good thing? Or would I
Right.
have gone deeper into that scary experience? This last summer, I was like so tired of having nightmares that I looked up how to lucid dream. So I was like, let me just lean into this. Uh, so I started, so I tried that out. It was on my honeymoon, so nice way to spend the time. But it's like you do a couple tricks, you drink a lot of water, and you do tricks like you tell yourself, this is not a dream, this is not a dream, this is not a dream. That's what you tell yourself when you're in your waking state, and that will help you to distinguish dreams from reality. But I found out it didn't help me at all because like being aware was somehow sometimes worse. Like being aware
Oh.
that you're in a dream, because just because I was aware that I was dreaming didn't mean I could get out easy, or didn't mean there weren't like threats still. And so then I stopped doing that because I was like, this is not actually helping me. And then I also think there's a point to letting go.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I'll overthink something during the day. And if I take that with me into my dreams, that's terrible. Like my dreams should be to turn off and to like enter into a new um, realm. But yeah, I said quite some things. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know the right stances to take.
I know one time I was being chased and I got mad and I turned around and as soon as I turned around and I yelled at it was like someone chasing me.
Yeah.
I yelled at it and it just stopped and went away. It didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that might be the right thing, but you can't, I mean, you can't control it usually, so I don't know if that's really helpful unless you do lucid dream. I mean, I don't try to lucid dream. It's just that it's been happening.
It happens. Yeah. I
Yeah, so it's all very strange. I don't know what to do with it.
I think like we're exposed to, like you say, a lot of different types of entities, beings. Maybe some are unique to us, maybe some are beyond us. And I think the stance we take differs in terms of what is good. And I think there's also like some spirits or beings, I don't know the right words to use, to learn from, and
Hmm.
others that are simply trying to like consume you or trying to pull you down. Because I've definitely had a lot of those dreams. Like I've had dreams where I'm murdering someone and it's like it's terrible. And like how do I you're filled with rage. You don't even know why. And yeah, or the worst dreams. I find the worst dreams to be, I don't know if you ever had this one, when you're being chased and you know you're guilty, like in Crime and Punishment. Have you ever had that?
No.
I've had that where no, it's so elaborate. Like there's the whole FBI is after you, and you're like trying to. There's just all these things going on. I had one where my mom was like the main agent who was trying to chase me down, and then it was a really beautiful ending scene. Like I was basically giving up. They were chasing me, and I gave up. Trying to run away. And then it was my mom who caught me and was going to arrest me. And I remember she just forgave me. It was so nice. She just like hugged me, and it was beautiful.
That's a good ending.
Yeah, it kind of like it shook me out of it, and I was like, "Oh, what am I doing?" I have that a lot where I wake up, I was like, "Life is okay." I think it's my punishment for having a relatively easy life. It's just my dreams just haunt me. That's my theory at the moment. Um,
Oh, like balancing it out.
yeah, yeah, that's honestly what I think. Like I've had this theory
Wow.
because when I was a kid, I hated like going to school. I just wasn't a very happy teenager, let's say, and then I was so happy to sleep, and my dreams reflected that often. And then as life got better, it's just yeah, a lot of
Huh. I've
a lot of that.
never heard that's a funny way to like a balancing act.
It's a theory I have. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
true.
I mean, yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't know what's going on most of the time. I just
I'll tell you a
pay
funny
attention.
theory,
Go
the
ahead.
that we sometimes like get stuck in other people's dreams. Have you ever heard this one? Ever thought
Hmm.
about that? That like
No.
I don't know, that like you accidentally end up in like the dream of some, Asian woman. And you're just like, and there's a danger to that when you're stuck in someone else's dream. Um, I've wondered that because sometimes I have dreams that are so foreign to me that I'm like, what do I even do with this? Like I'm in a
Yeah.
medieval time and there's like a priest writing stuff on my back, and I'm like, what's going on?
Actually, yeah, that has happened a few times where it was something so vivid that it looked more like a memory
Yeah,
than a dream. Something I remember dreaming, I thought I was in like Vietnam or something, like as a soldier, and it was so vivid. And I don't watch those kind of movies or anything, so
yeah,
I was very confused, and I woke up convinced I was like, I think I was there, and then I'm like, wait, I don't know I
yeah,
really don't know what to do with this. Um,
exactly.
yeah, I don't know what happens I mean, where you're going when you dream. Those are all scary questions to ask, I
I've
guess.
heard this one as well, that people like this idea of like there's a parallel dimension or like another dimension where you have like these, I don't know, kings and queens, and they when they need servants, they're like, oh, we'll just get a dreamer. Let's just get a dreamer, and then the dream,
Wow.
like you're just one of the people that they grab, and then you have to like go through that dream and um
This is like horrifying sci-fi.
yeah. I mean the options are pretty endless when you think about it because dreams are so mysterious and they're so varied, but then there's an element to them that throughout cultures, throughout time, people have paid attention to them and like they draw serious conclusions from them, where um prophecies appear in dreams, angels appear in dreams, demons appear in dreams. So to me that's something I should take seriously.
Right. I mean, some dreams it seems like not like they're static, but like you don't really, I mean, there doesn't seem to be inherently like something that you really need to pay attention to. And other times they'll just tell you things like
Yeah,
almost like a direct message. If that's been happening in the last couple of years. Sometimes it's like it will just tell me something in this very straightforward way.
yeah,
And you're like, okay, I mean, I'm gonna pay attention, but I don't know where I mean, where this is coming from. So that gets weird too. But that also comes with this weird, this like lucid thing, the waking up in the dreams, the like things coming. I mean, not within the same dream, but it's like these clusters that has kind of just happened in the last 2 years.
yeah,
Where my dreams have just changed, and you have to sleep every night, so it's not gonna
yeah.
go away. It's
You
just
have
something you have to.
recurring dreams as well?
No, just a lot of similar th like themes that
Yeah.
thread their way through the thing. Yeah. Do you have recurring dreams?
Well, I have this, and my wife is the same, is that wherever I work, I know I have it with the school. Um, the dream arena will often be my workplace.
Hmm.
So even to the point where there was a time where for my parents, I would clear out moss from tiles and I would dream like that. I would like where when I was working in the clothing store or working in a hotel, all these things, the dreams that I would have while I was working at the particular place were centered around that. That was the arena. And then a lot of things would go wrong, all these horror scenarios. Um, or like so I work at a gym and I work at a school. And as soon as I started both jobs at the same time, one of my first dreams was that I was teaching a fitness class to kids, and it was like completely running rampant. And my wife was that with her yoga. Like she almost, well, I don't know, every night, but a lot of the time she dreams about her classes and something going wrong.
Hmm.
Uh, like that's often the arena for me. It's a place that I'm familiar with, but like there's a variation to it, or there's multiple levels to the building that I've already known.
Right.
There's
I guess
something
that
to,
makes sense though. It's like where you're operating
yeah,
the moment. I mean, at least not, I mean, you can be dreaming always of like your childhood home or
yeah,
something like that, which might be weirder, like you're stuck on something or do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like looking back, it's interesting.
There's something weird also there where I never ever dream of certain very close people to me, but then I very often dream of others or like people that were in my past 10 years ago. I keep getting them, got them for
Mhm.
a decade. They never go away. I'll tell you one story, which maybe is helpful with understanding all of this. My best friend from my childhood, we were like good friends, but I don't know, kind of drifted off when I was 12, 13. We still went to the same high school, but yeah, it kind of went away and away and away. And then I stopped seeing him completely and he started appearing in my dreams, like as some sort of like a nemesis figure. He's always angry at me, um, like unresolved business. And then 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, let me just see if I contact him, if that will do anything to my dreams. So I touched base with him, ended up getting along really well. We had a long chat, um, and never seen him in a dream again.
Huh,
Completely gone.
that's weird. Did you
Yeah.
tell him that you were contacting him because he
No, no, but I've done it before with people where I send them a text or whatever. I'm like, hey, I saw you in my dream, so let me just make sure that there's nothing unresolved
Yeah.
business or something.
Huh.
But yeah, I still have some of those people from like people from high school I still get all the time.
So maybe it's like people who are on like the periphery of things, but not your
Yeah,
like active
it's exactly like that.
conscious life.
Yeah. My wife
Yeah.
wouldn't dream of me the first 2 years we were together at all. I dreamt of her super quick somehow, but not the other way around. It's interesting.
I had the same thing. I didn't dream about my husband for I dream about him sometimes now. But
Ah,
for the longest time he didn't show up and I would see like an ex or something and I'm like, why are you here? Um, but I wouldn't see him and that was really weird. I don't know why. There might be something about them being like right in your conscious sphere, so like I don't know. That kind of it makes sense like it's probably not right, but like there's so much in your conscious life that it
yeah,
doesn't really need to seep into the unconscious life
yeah,
almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But my wife, she's like almost exclusively a part of my dreams to
Hmm.
the point where it's like she is me in a sense. Like we're always a duo. Like I always know that she's there, and sometimes she appears in a different form, but I still know, oh yeah, that's Jules. She's there, and
Oh, yeah.
I think that's because she's integrated now. So
Yeah.
it's beyond conscious. It's like an unconscious
Right.
aspect to me, and then there will be other people that yeah that I see almost every day, and I never see them in my dreams. But oh, here's actually maybe this makes sense because you're saying periphery. So I was saying that the guy who was instructing me, the teacher at the school in the last couple of weeks, he was showing up in my dream, and he's not really in my life. He's kind of in the periphery because I was only there for like a couple of days, and he's not far into my past. He's in my present, but he's not
Hmm.
present in my present,
Right.
but he's still there. So maybe that makes sense. Whereas a lot of people that I very close with, like never see them.
I wonder if it has to do with if you have like a conscious relationship with somebody, maybe like borrowing your wife or maybe your mom or something like that. Because
Yeah.
those are like so like overwhelmingly,
Yeah.
there. But if someone was too present or like you knew them too well, it would be like your conscious relationship and you're not dreaming about your conscious relationship, maybe like you have to be able to project something else onto the person, so they have to be
Yes.
kind of distant from you, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's weird how that works. I think I dream about everybody, so I mean I don't have that
Ah.
really,
Do you ever
but
dream about like people that you don't know personally? Like, do you dream
yeah.
about celebrities and yeah?
Oh yeah. For several years I dreamt about Jordan Peterson all the time.
Ah.
Constantly. It was almost, it got irritating. I'm like, oh, again.
I think
He's kind of,
he might show up as an archetype because he's definitely
yeah,
yeah, right?
right. He was clearly standing for something.
Was he constant?
So,
Was he variable? Like what kind of presence was he?
um, during that, during that time that he was, I don't know if you were following him then or not, but there was that time when he got sick and he disappeared to
Yeah.
Russia.
Yeah, yeah.
And during that time, I was dreaming about him and he looked sick. And I mean, I was aware that he was sick, but it was weird that he was showing up that way. He looked terrible. Um, and that was when he was kind of gone. And then when he popped back up, I don't know. But yeah, he's like the consistent character. I guess it's like a the positive father figure, like
Ah,
he's often on stage or getting ready to go like give a talk or something like that. Sometimes he's doing almost like a judge thing. I remember giving him once some papers and I was like, everybody had to give him some papers and he would tell you what you're gonna go do.
yeah,
And I gave him my papers and I'm like waiting anxiously for him to like give me my
yeah.
job or whatever. Um, and he's like, ah, you're an explorer, go explore, go do that. I was like, oh, okay. Great.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, but and I was always trying to show him my art. I was like, I did a thing that here, you should look at it. And I could never find the artwork too. It was really frustrating.
Ah,
So,
that makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, I could never find, sometimes I would have a gun and try to pull the trigger and never would
Yeah,
work. There's
yeah,
always that same feeling where you're like, you can't find the thing. So, that would happen a lot. But he popped up for a long time, and I think he's kind of gone away
yeah.
now. Um, but while I was really concentrating on what he was talking about and trying to like integrate some of that, it was very present. So I don't know, that was something. I forgot what you asked me initially.
Oh, me too. But
That's
oh yeah, about his
oh, celebrities and things. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I read that a lot when I had a gap year. I wasn't seeing a lot of people. I kept seeing these podcast hosts that I was listening to, and they were also appearing in different forms and formats. That kind of went away. I think that whoever I'm projecting to be really wise will show up in my dreams to try to tell me to give me advice, let's say.
Mhm.
So I've definitely had Peterson pop up as well, but also as like a tyrannical father type of figure, like a
Really?
shadowy,
Oh,
like his real side came out type of thing,
huh.
like the dragon behind him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he could be scary. I would,
He can be scary. He was
yeah.
saying, I went to see him in Rotterdam last year, and then he got this question about his Twitter use, and he answered it saying that, sometimes you get into the pit with the snakes and you get a little dirty yourself, stuff like that, and it got like super dark. You're just listening to him, like, yeah,
He
kind of
used to say
scary.
stuff like that often, so you kind of know that side is there.
Yeah,
He's just better at, he doesn't put it on too much anymore.
yeah,
But he used to say a lot of things like that, so I can see it.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He's also just riffing on stage. Like he's proper funny. He was talking about his Soviet paintings in his house that are just terrifying. And he was saying this story about his daughter with Stalin like falling on her face in the middle of the night. And it was like a comedy sketch. It was so good and it was all improvised. Um, but yeah, just,
Yeah,
just
we saw him recently. Somebody got us the tickets. I didn't think I would get to see him probably ever, and we went and saw him, and afterward we talked to a few people who are like, so what did he talk about? Nobody knew what he was talking about.
uh,
But it was like this word magic that he was like conjuring something and everybody was listening intently, but nobody knew what he's so fast and so it's like it's you don't see that super often.
hmm,
And he's waving his arms and everything and walking back and forth. And afterward, I'm like, so what did he say? Does anybody like really remember what he was talking about? They're like, no, I don't really. I mean, Cain and Abel once, but
yeah.
it was like this entrancing thing and you had no idea what happened afterward.
Because you get one piece of the puzzle. Like he's making basically what I heard from the guy he's touring with. They were having a conversation recently, and he was saying that what Jordan basically does is he develops his thinking throughout his tours, so that every lecture builds on the one before. And so a lot of people just get to see one lecture like in the middle of of the path,
Right.
and usually they make some sense, but uh, it only really becomes complete once you see all of them.
Right, you got to pull it together at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, um, we kind of drifted off topic a little bit because I
yeah,
don't
off of
even
the entities.
yeah, off of the entities because it's almost like I don't even know what to say about them in a way because it's so far out of the
Yeah,
ordinary. I
it's
don't really know
the
what to say about it.
I'll say that the conversation you sent me was very helpful with Rod and Jonathan.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's true that there is a re-enchantment and that's also dangerous in many ways.
Mm.
mostly because we don't have any, as you know, evidence with this conversation. We don't have really names for what we're seeing. So we could call all of them spirits, we could call all of them ghosts, we could call all of them angels, we could call all of them demons because we don't really have a good way to discern them. Um, and the thing is, we just don't have familiarity with them, or at least making sense of them consciously. Like I
Hmm.
ignored them when I was a materialist for sure. Like I was like, that this is useless. But now they could mean anything. So you could like start to overanalyze and you could start to think like, oh,
Right.
maybe this lower part of me or this lower spirit that wants something from me. Oh, that's God for sure. Like he's trying to tell me something, or you know,
Yeah,
there's
there's not a good language for it. That conversation I re-listened to um earlier just because I'd almost forgotten what they were talking about.
yeah.
Um and they launched right into the UFO thing. And I think we might have talked about re-enchantment a little bit before, or maybe in speaking with Jake.
We did so with
Um,
Jake, yeah.
there it was. Yeah. But this idea keeps coming up too, and I'm on Substack, and now I'm seeing all these Substacks like about re-enchantment, and it just feels like it's people are kind of it's trending a little bit or something like that. And I don't feel like anybody really knows what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just something kind of it's like got a little bit of electricity around it or something.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like they talked about UFOs, and and immediately they started talking about demons, and they're like, the UFOs are demons. Um. And I don't really know how I feel about that. Not because I don't believe in demons necessarily, just that it's like, well, now you've labeled it as demon, and now you don't know, like, what else is, what else is it?
Yeah.
We don't really know.
Yeah.
Um, we don't know a lot of things. And like your experience with ayahuasca, or you could look back at more traditional cultures. They have all kinds of things going on. There's a lot of ambiguity. Um, it's not just like good and bad. It's not just angels and demons and mostly demons.
Yeah.
So you lose the ambiguity when you start talking like that. And I think people get really afraid too,
Yeah.
which is like like it's relevant to be afraid. It's scary. But when you encounter something, to bring it back to that point, it's like when you encounter something completely unknown, you're gonna be afraid. That's gonna be your
Yeah.
first reaction. Even if it was maybe good or ambiguous, like
Hmm.
every time in the Bible an angel comes, they're telling people like don't be afraid because normally they would be dying. The angel
Yeah. Yeah.
coming to get you is like
Yeah.
it's not a good thing, unless they have a message for you. So, um, I don't know where I started getting all these video recommendations after watching that about like Christians talking about UFOs and demons and stuff, and I
Yeah.
listened to a few just to see what was bubbling up. And um people are saying things like, well, if you wake up in the night and you feel like it was a bad thing and you're afraid, it's a demon, but if you wake up and you feel peaceful, then it was God. And I'm like, I don't know how that
No.
doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like
No.
God's really scary if you
Yeah. If you meet God,
uh,
you'll be terrified. Like,
yeah, like why, like, oh, he's only gonna soothe you. Like I don't
yeah.
that's a very that's a weird uh, perspective, I think.
Yeah. And I think we're missing out with, I don't know, being certain. Like the Rod Dreher, I listened to Rod Dreher talking with Kill Zeldin as well, and they were talking about psychedelics. He was really negative about it, and he was saying how he had like positive experiences himself,
Mhm.
but then completely bashing it because of the negative potential. And I just thought that was an unfair move to make because like here you are, you like get out of your worldview that you were stuck in with this substance you take, and now you're completely trashing the substance because somehow
Right.
you know better or you're better than it. But like, I think you're right in saying that there are a lot of things like we're opening up a whole new world that we basically wouldn't let in before,
Hmm.
and it is not at all obvious what about that is good or bad. I think
Right.
definitely stop learning from something once you've categorized it as evil. So the and of course there's the danger on the other side where if you let everything in, you're gonna get some
Right. It's
bits too.
it's
But
actually unknown. It's like you really you really don't know what to do with it, so it's way scarier. Even it's almost scary if it's ambiguous.
Yeah.
Um, I heard him talk about the psychedelics that way too. I thought it was very interesting. I don't want to get on like a train of criticizing people for doing that exactly, but that's just the most common thing that
Nowadays,
happens
yeah.
is I talked to like a dozen people. I talked to Paul Vanderklay a few years ago, and I said at the end, I was like, I want to talk to other people who are having weird experiences and just hear what people are saying. And a bunch of people contacted me, and I talked to like a dozen people who had taken psychedelics and then become Christians. And everybody kind of said the same thing. They're like, well, I had an experience that turned me towards the church or towards Christianity or just being religious again or something like that. It opened up my worldview. But now I feel like I have to say that it's bad.
Mm.
And I don't really want to say if it's good or bad. I have said before, I feel pressured sometimes to say that like it did like we shouldn't do it. Um, I don't know if we should do it or not. I don't really feel I'm in a position to say whether or not, we should be doing it, um but there is a pressure to say that it is bad. Even if you had something positive happen afterward, you have to give this like warning label to it and go like, actually, though, we shouldn't do that. You should probably be like a monk or an ascetic.
Yeah.
That's how you can, that's the only legitimate way to have the experience, which is, there's something to be said about that too. But it's just this weird little thing that happens. Like every time it go, the worldview gets split open, you get your new one, and then you have to conform to the rules of the new worldview, which if
Yeah,
it's
I understand.
Christianity, you're like, well, we can't let psychedelics in now. So we have to backtrack and go like, well, I did this thing, but it was bad, and now I have to take it back.
Yeah.
And that is a weird thing that happens.
I think that, you know, psychedelics, they open up so much. And for some people, like, that's what they need because they're stuck. But for a lot of people, they're already quite open, you know? It's
Right.
like, I think it's so individual whether or not psychedelics can be helpful or good in making you a better person. I think that's a really good way to evaluate if it's fruitful for you. If it's like it's making you a better partner and daughter, father,
Mhm.
whatever. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like this posture of yeah, really certainty or I don't know. You just close yourself off to so much when you've made your mind up about it.
Hmm.
And I find it especially weird when there's a positive experience you have with it. Like to me, I should be grateful. Like I'm extremely grateful to that experience. I don't go recommending it. Like very rarely do that
Hmm.
because I think it's like so intense and powerful. But in the right circumstances, I can really see value. Uh, imbalance is useful to the person that needs to evolve to something. A
Hmm.
lot of people they have balance and that's good. But some people they need like it's like a training camp. That's the way I look at it, I guess. Similar with being a monk or like going through an ascetic period. I think that's like I don't know, you're changing something, you're introducing entropy to hopefully get somewhere better. You're trying to make it so that the amount of chaos you introduce into your life actually makes you stronger. But
Right.
chaos can also destroy you. But like there's always a fine line to these things. But I think with wisdom you can get through a lot. I understand the caution.
Hmm.
I understand people giving the warning. I understand all of that. Um, Partially because, especially when you have a big platform, people will just do what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, that's totally true. I
That's
get
the
both sides. That's the thing. I do see why they say it. I say why people push back against it. It all makes sense. It's just this funny like I don't know, this backtracking that we have to do and there within that conversation even they were talking about he brought up a young priest, Roger brought up a young priest who was saying for younger people it's not atheism that's the problem anymore. Now
Yeah.
It's the occult. That's what's pulling people. And it kind of depends where you are, what you call the occult. Like some people would say yoga is the occult, and I don't
Yeah.
really think I don't think I would put it under that label, but people, you know what I mean? There's like this broad category of it's like spiritual practice or like esoteric practice that's not Christianity.
Hmm.
I see that everywhere um going on,
Christian.
and that was really interesting that he even brought it up. I feel like the older generation isn't talking about that so much, maybe just because they don't see it, but it's everywhere.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that also people don't realize how wild Christianity really is. Like I think we have this clean view of it, but it's not clean. Like it's not clean at all.
Oh, it's very messy.
I mean, anyone that reads the Bible, you can read the Bible and be like, you can get a very clean message, but mostly it's extremely chaotic. And there's an order to it and a fine line to it, a through line, let's say, of goodness, but there's all the chaos you could want, um, which is
Yeah.
how the world is. And so I think, I don't know, operating out of fear has not served me often. I'd say operating out of like this, all of this is bad. I think a true Christian message of like, well, it's why I do this podcast. Also, speak to people, speak to everyone. There's always something to learn. It's something Peter says as well. There's something to learn from everyone, and all people are created in God's image. So there's like, I see a divine spark in everyone, and like to cast them away as a witch or something like that. Even that, I had to like, I spoke to Jason. You know Jason?
Oh yes, Jay. Yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah,
talked to Jason a long time ago.
cool. I love
Yeah,
Jason. Big fan.
he's fun.
I spoke to Jason because I had this conversation with my wife about witches, and I just had this idea like witches are 100% bad, like always. And Jason,
Sorry, go on.
no, no, say,
It, it, I I swing back and forth on this because I've seen both. You see like the girl who's like, I like crystals and nature and like this is cool. And then you see I've seen people who are like, we should be sacrificing people again. Why
yeah,
are we worried about this? So
I get
there's
that.
a spectrum.
No,
Yeah.
that's I had a lot of these responses as well because I
Yeah.
was like, I've just seen so much weird stuff. I'm like, witchcraft's back, and And Jason like has spoken to witches. I was like, you spoke to witches? How did you speak to witches? He's like, yeah, just like I got into a Discord server and this and that. He's such a pure soul, and he introduced himself as like the Christian guy who wants to learn about witches. And I listened to those episodes, and you know, and my wife showed me someone that's kind of a witch as well on Instagram, and a lot of them just are really into like herbs, and they're just like they're really good at making uh, little brews and like they're really in touch with nature. They don't do
Yeah.
any sacrifices, and it's like
Right.
that.
Women who are like earthy and
Yeah, they call
I
themselves a witch.
totally get that. I like all that stuff. I totally feel the pull in that direction.
Yeah,
Like it makes sense and it makes total sense and it's like usually more women than men.
yep, yeah, for
And
sure.
I don't think that that's super bad. There's a lot of other stuff going on too under that like umbrella term
Yeah,
um, that is super weird. Which yeah, so yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I have more to say on entities because I'm remembering something. So
Yeah, go
I
for it.
went into a what is it like a active imagination after oh yeah, it was after I spoke to you.
Nice, nice.
Okay, now remember. Try to do active imagination. And I tell my wife, like I explained what I was about to do. Like I'm trying to contact, you know, beings or whatever. And she's like, okay. Okay, it's a funny reaction. So I went in, got out, told her a little bit about, I don't know, what I was trying to do, what I was experiencing. And she was like, yeah, I do that too. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, I talk to my ancestors, I talk to beings. It just happened.
Whoa.
I was like, what? Tell me more. Um, yeah, and she just like she has a I don't know, it's very immaterial. It's not like showing up as as human beings or whatever, but she just feels profoundly connected, especially with uh, her ancestors, I guess, her grandparents, great grandparents, and stuff like that. And she just feels that connection all the time. So that's another way in which I think people can experience that. But that was kind of news to me. I think she's one of those people that's profoundly connected to, I don't know, subconscious and the unity of the world, where sometimes I'll tell her something that Jonathan Peugeot says and she's like, obviously. To me all of this is like massive news.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I've been amazed by that for a while. She just doesn't verbalize it really.
Hmm.
Um, but like a
She's
lot
very
of,
intuitive. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
but like quite aligned in a sense that when I tell her that I think uh love is at the basis of reality, she's like, I think I believe that too. I don't think about that, but I think so. And then I explain it to her and she's like, yeah, stuff like that. And just yeah, I mean, when you think about ancient cultures, which I love to do, I always love learning things where the ancients speak about them as obvious, and to me, it's like, what's going on? That's
right.
that's the stuff that really grabbed me when I was studying Egypt, and gods are one of them, and so I think gods are perfect for this discussion. Am I lagging? No, right? No thing. Um, yeah. So, army of Alexander comes into Egypt, and they're like, "Oh, look, that's our god. Those are our gods. They just have different names and stuff like that." And basically, there's a translatability between the Greek pantheon and the Egyptian pantheon, even with the Mesopotamian system. And I
Hmm.
think that directly points to some sort of like an independent uh, existence. And John Vervaeke, I spoke to John Vervaeke about this, and he's like, "Yeah, they're transjective uh, beings. So they're between objective existence and subjective existence, but they're real parts of us. So they're not just our feelings, let's say. They're also they exist even when we don't. Let's say like that. Or like when you die, the gods don't die necessarily. But there are
Right.
certain gods that we keep alive. And
Yeah.
I think God himself is the exception in that even when we don't sacrifice to him, he still loves us or like is present. Um, like there in Egypt, there was this text very famous now of this Egyptian priest, I think, or a king, who's like lamenting the future, being like one day this land will be void of gods and they will be here no more and stuff like that. Like that's a prophecy of if you stop sacrificing to these
Hmm.
beings, they actually leave. They're not really there anymore. And nowadays there's people that really strongly feel that they have a connection with Egyptian gods, with gods that are basically like dead, that are like fighting for attention or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, all of that to me sounds pretty real. Like 5 years
Yeah.
ago, I would have like scoffed at all of this, but like I can really understand what they're saying, understand how the Egyptians see their gods. I see that they're experiencing them. I think that there's a real reality by being possessed by an entity that's not God, let's say.
Hmm.
I don't know what you think about all that.
Yeah, I think I would have, I don't know if I would have scoffed at it 5 years ago exactly, but I would have found, I don't know if, I would have found a way to undercut it and go like, well, that's I don't know how to phrase it almost. There's ways that people say this and they mean like, oh, it's only psychological
Yeah,
or it's only a symbol, and as though that negates it somehow
yeah,
because
like you reduce it.
psychological reality isn't real and it doesn't
Yeah,
affect you, which is crazy when you think about like that's a crazy thing to say when you really start
yeah,
thinking
it's
about.
true.
Yeah, or like it's only an archetype. It's like, well, what is an archetype? Does it not affect reality at all? Or like it's just this floating above thing? I met a woman who was she's, I don't know what she called herself, like a Wiccan or a pagan or I don't know. She was into some kind of stuff like that. She was trying everything. And she was like going in the woods and doing these rituals with these other women and stuff, but I'm like, well, did you really believe it? I mean, how did you feel about that? And she's like, well, I don't really believe it. It's just kind of like a symbol or something. And I'm like, okay, so you think it's not like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
weird thing to say. So you kind of like there's like a buffer then between you and this thing that you're now interacting with, but I also don't know. I don't know. There's just so much to say about that, but
Yeah.
but it's like yeah, I think that all of that stuff makes a lot of sense. When you were saying about the Egyptian gods, there was a thing in Greece around, I think it was around the time Christianity was appearing. They said all the oracles like dried up. There
Mm.
was like these holy sites and there would be the oracles and they stopped they stopped giving prophecies
Yeah.
at around the same time. And so it was this like new emerging thing, like it diminished the other thing somehow, or like people stopped paying attention to it, so it went away. So it was about attention almost, where you place your attention. So like this woman who doesn't believe that what she's doing is a real thing is like her attention isn't fully sacrificing to this thing. But if it was, like, I don't know, I think it has more efficacy maybe. I don't know if you can summon gods at will, like they're if they're gods or they're entities. I don't know if you just believing in them makes it a thing.
Mm.
I don't think so. That doesn't make
No.
sense. But there is this relationship with your attention to this thing that exists outside of time and space. So it's like there's a meeting point where you're calling it up and it's coming to you, or it's coming to you and you like answer. Um, but I would think I don't know. New this just to connect back to what I was saying before about when things come though, when a new thing would come, that's going to be terrifying.
Yeah.
Whether or not you just don't know what it is yet, but any new thing that's unknown is going to be like a snake. It's going to make you have like a anxiety, fear response, and then you have to figure out how to deal with the response. Freeze or run away or like look at it, I
Yeah.
guess. Sorry, I'm
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing you.
figuring this out as we go.
I'm wondering if we're summoning new gods or if we're summoning like ancient gods with what we're doing nowadays. Like I don't know if us with AI, for example, creating some sort of agency or the other things that we're doing where we have this, well, the internet, for example, is something interesting. And internet itself is somehow beyond us, but it is us. We give it life, but we're completely guided by it as well. We give it attention. We sacrifice our time and energy toward it. Um, but it seemingly has some sort of agency of its own. Does it have a telos? Does it have a goal in mind? Or are we like giving our attention to a mindless agency, which is maybe even worse? Like, I don't know if it's worse to like worship to a god that has a goal that is seemingly evil, or like one that doesn't even have a, yeah, an agency that is directed at all. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a terrible question. I mean, like it's a
Yeah.
terrifying
I mean,
question.
John Vervaeke is like, he is terrified of what's happening with AI and stuff
I
like that.
think we probably should be, but I don't understand the actual technical
No, me
aspects of
neither.
AI.
I didn't dive into it.
No, I'm not interested in that kind of thing, but the story around it is
Yeah,
very interesting. And it somehow links with the alien UFO thing at the same
for
time
sure.
in this weird mythology that we're telling. I mean, if you listen to Joe Rogan, who laughs if you talk about demons, by the way, or angels or anything religious, like because he's, you know, uh, not Catholic. We could say, he was like raised Catholic, but he's not Catholic. So he'll laugh at anything to do with that. But if he brings up aliens or AI, he's talking about a superior entity that is technologically based, that's guiding us towards this future.
Yeah, it's
It's,
so funny.
it's both going to save us or it's like a calamity. So it's this anticipation of the end of humanity, but
Yeah,
also
yeah.
maybe the redemption of humanity because we could leave the meat body or, we could leave human
Yeah,
nature
it's
behind.
terrifying when he speaks about it. I find it like
Yeah.
it bothers me so much because I'm like, I mean, you're the one that's supposed to be not the materialist. Like you've had all these experiences with psychedelics and whatnot, and somehow, like when he speaks about aliens or about us, and he's like, you know what I think we are? We're, you know, we make new things. We make things better. We're supposed to like ascend and like, and it's all within a materialistic frame. I'm like, how are you not getting it? Like, how are you
Right.
still
But
stuck
he
in this?
hasn't integrated whatever experiences he had is totally still outside of his worldview.
It's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild because I think he's like one of the reasons he's so popular is because he's so open-minded. And he listens to a lot of different people. And I like wonder if anything that Peugeot would say to him, for example, if he would ever talk, if he would actually grasp it. But he has been more and more positive about religion, but still in kind of like a utilitarian type of way, like the cultural
Yeah.
Christianity type of
Right.
thing.
Well, he'll listen to Peterson. I mean, he'll listen to most people, to be fair. He's super
Yeah.
open about that. But, it doesn't mean he'll like adopt the ideas, but what you get from him is more like this stream of consciousness of the consciousness of the times.
Yes. Yes.
Because he's
Exactly.
got all those ideas boiling together and they don't have to make logical sense. It's like health, politics, free speech, it's
Yeah.
just it is that layer of like the collective, um,
It is.
I don't know, thought at the moment, which
Yeah.
is bizarre. But there's this anticipation of like it's so weird how it matches up in a lot of ways with the Christian stories, like the end times. It's like Revelation, but it's just in secular terms. It's just twisted
Yeah.
in that thing. So we're still doing the story no matter what. Like we're
Yeah.
still running the same program.
I, s-
Um,
I saw this video of this guy who was saying, I don't know, it was about Islam. And he was saying that, I don't know, AI or technology is going to make Islam go away. Anyway, I didn't even watch the video. I just watched 30 seconds because after 30 seconds, he's like, it, uh, it was not the devil, as many people predicted, that would be the downfall of Islam, but it was our phones. And it's like, it's the same thing. Like, what are you like? And
yeah,
then he has this
different word, same
photo
thing.
of like a guy with horns. And I'm like, guys, you're just being blinded by things
Right,
because you're not admitting reality to what is not embodied, and that is going to consume you.
right. But that's why we're in so much trouble in a lot of ways. We're denying everything that's not the body or material or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there it is. I mean, um, yeah, but I mean, and then but the things that are coming up, like let's say, and I really wish I could just do like a poll of everybody, like who else is having dreams of like entities or
Yeah.
I dream about UFOs too, only in the last 2 years. They sometimes whiz by, sometimes they're chasing me.
Mhm.
They're around sometimes. Um, and Jung had this idea about UFOs. He was super interested in UFOs and he said something like it's the people are projecting this new thing that's coming and it's so out of our experience. It's completely other, right? And you can kind of, I mean, he has like a certain spin on it, but you can kind of
Yeah.
see what it means. It means like the old thing is breaking down, a new thing is coming.
Yeah.
And then, so the question is like, well, how are you going to react to the new thing? Which I guess is what the whole conversation we've been having is about is like,
Yeah.
what are the characteristics that you're experiencing? How are you going to react to it? We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Uh, like really don't know. It's hard to talk about because you just don't even have the words to describe what's going on
Mm.
almost. So,
Yeah, and I think it depends a lot on your personality, how you deal with the strange. We're talking about in our first conversation about chaos and stuff like that. I mean, aliens in some ways symbolize. I mean, alien literally means strange. Like
mhm.
it is strangeness itself that we're having this conversation about. And I think I don't know. For some people, I've always find it funny. Like we should get more weapons so we could potentially fight the aliens. I mean, the aliens are like, if that's what you think aliens are going to be, you're going to be in for for a doozy. Um, But yeah, I think for some people it's super exciting because it's strange and it's new. Um, and for some people that's the thing that they're most terrified of. Like when you look at people with different, I don't know, personalities in politics. For some people, the greatest threat that they could imagine is like this hillbilly Texas American that's like super racist and stuff like that. And for the other person, it would be like a refugee coming in, spreading radical religious ideas. And I think
Sure.
it's similar with aliens and with beings and with entities and stuff like that. And we need to somehow find a way to interact with it in a productive way because they're going to be here. They're here. They're interacting with us clearly.
Hmm.
I think we need like a wisdom in this. Like we need some sort of guide, but who's going to help us guide when we don't have language for it? I really doubt whether Christian language is going to suffice here, because what you were saying, like there's a bit of a simple way of describing all of this, and especially modern Christianity will just call 90% of it demons, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's the right way to go. Even
Right.
though I still find the Christian framework helpful with spiritual reality.
Hmm. No, me too. It's unfortunate because I want there to be a way for it to be helpful in this arena, and I'm finding that it's not.
Yeah,
Um, so I can't, there's a like I don't want to toss it all out at all. I'm like, but that isn't quite working. Like that isn't enough. And I feel like what the only thing that can happen is enough people on their own are gonna bump into things.
yeah,
And some people are not going to make it. Some people are going to go. I know a guy who saw a UFO and he lost his he like had a complete, um,
yeah.
it just was too much, which is
Mhm.
totally understandable. I mean, I've never seen anything in the sky. That would be way different than having a dream, I feel like somehow.
Yeah.
Um, but enough people are just going to have to bump into something. And it's like I don't know, it's just, what do you call that? I don't know. I don't like the word, evolution exactly, but
Yeah.
almost like a trial and error process, which is horrible when I mean that's not what you want to say about it,
Yeah.
but I don't know what else could possibly be because nobody seems to have just don't have the right language or the right framework or yeah, I don't know. That's
Do
as
you
far as
think
I
that
can
that
put it.
that popping up of UFOs and aliens is like, I don't know, to me it feels like an explosion of something because we're neglecting it so hard. Like we're pushing the spiritual, the religious so far that it comes out. Even I even believe, like I've heard some of the UFO stories and stuff like that. I even believe that there's somewhat of a reality to it, maybe even a material reality, because I do believe in like synchronicities and
Mhm.
miracles to a degree. But I think that might be that, like it's exploding, but I think people are not realizing that those are perhaps spiritual slash like collective psychological events that are happening that you cannot analyze forensically, let's say, but there is a, I don't know.
They
I
seem
mean,
in between.
yeah, and
They're
people see it.
between,
Yeah,
yeah, between spiritual and physical, which is like a category we don't know how to deal with.
yeah,
And there's a book that was referenced in that video that I've actually read just previously called Passport to Magonia. It's about UFO sightings throughout the centuries.
yeah.
It's super interesting if you're into that kind of stuff, but the guy doesn't draw a lot of conclusions. He just sort of cites all these examples over time of different things happening. And in the video, Rod Dreher kind of made it sound like the guy had sort of concluded that these were like demons or satanic kind of entities. That was not the impression that I got at all from the book, from that book in particular anyway. He just sort of cites it and he's talking a lot about the fairy realm, like from Celtic uh,
Nice.
uh mythology, these people who pop up, sometimes they kidnap you, sometimes they bring you back years later or days later, or weird things happen with time. And all these instances of people seeing these weird floating machines, but in different centuries, they would appear differently to people.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, in these really bizarre ways. And many people would see them sometimes. It wasn't just
yeah.
lone weirdo on a road or whatever. It would sometimes be many, many people. And they would do weird stuff too. Like, I think one it was something like a guy was clearing a field and one of these things came down and somebody got out and he was wearing like a snazzy outfit and he asked for a glass of water and then he got back in his ship and flew away. And you're like, well, I don't know if this qualifies as demonic activity, like I don't know what what do you do with that? Like
Yeah,
they seem to maybe they're going about their own business and we couldn't comprehend what that means. I don't know if it's necessarily even centered around us if
yeah,
there's we think it's all about us and like our human evolution or our
yeah,
Christian story or whatever, and we just have no idea. So we can't categorize it yet. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
come into those categories yet.
I find it
Um,
really interesting though what you're saying because the manifestation is different in different times in different cultures.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's
Like your
that's
perception can only, it's almost like your perception can't, it only perceives certain things that are allowable to you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's this crazy, I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true. This is what I read somewhere, that when the Spanish were coming to wherever they landed first,
yeah,
the Aztecs or somewhere in Mexico. I can't
yeah.
recall exactly where they landed, but they came and they said that the native people could not comprehend what they were seeing. They thought they were floating clouds because they didn't perceptually have a category for that thing.
Ah,
So they were like they didn't know how to process it almost.
yeah,
So it didn't come in. And now that our worldviews are kind of all exploding and everybody's kind of feeling this breakdown, even unconsciously, it's like then you start seeing weird things that might have always been there, but you couldn't perceive it before. And
yeah,
maybe you can't even perceive what it really is now, but there's only certain forms that are allowed to be perceived
yeah.
right now. That's how I kind of think about it. So I don't know. That's the
That's
only
actually
way I can
no, no.
start grasping it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's really good. I think like once you even collectively talk about something, even in hindsight, you can be like, oh yeah, that's what was there, and then it can unfold more. I like the fairy example a lot. I'm gonna read now Fantasties by George MacDonald. It's Jason's favorite book.
Yeah.
So I got it
He's
for that.
recommended that to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I started it, and it's about a man who like goes into the fairy world, and yeah, there seems to be like different rules of morality as well. Like this, it just doesn't apply at all, stuff like that. And I think that us letting in those realities, like I find that nowadays, while I'm opening up my worldview, I see the forest differently as well. I love this image with in Narnia where the trees stop dancing or something like that. Like there's these things like, oh, in within Narnia, at some point the magic gets sucked out of it. And then when they come back, they try to like re-enchant that very reality. And um, I think Narnia works as a not as a one-to-one the picture of our reality, but there's definitely a truth there that C.S. Lewis was trying to express of us when we negate the experience of more, we stop actually perceiving it to the point where we start to not just mythologize it, because I don't think that's a word that I like to use in a denigrating manner, but to make it into something that doesn't have any reality at all. I think fairies are probably real, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure how exactly I should categorize real.
right.
But I'm
I don't
happy.
know how it works,
Yeah,
but if so many people are saying that they experienced it, I'm not sure why you would downplay so many. Like, does it seems weird that we do that with people in the past. They're saying this is what's happening. And you're like,
everyone's pointing
that's not
to
happening. It's something else.
cross-cultural, universal
Yeah.
ideas, and we're like, no, but no, because we don't have any way to empirically verify. And it's like, if you would
Right.
be intellectually honest, you would take this seriously, but you don't
Right.
because you're
Right.
sure.
It's kind of scary then because you have to start opening up to those possibilities and going like, oh, like the world might be like that and I don't know how to interact with it.
Yeah, that's for me what it's been like of okay, I need to do this slowly because otherwise um it can be overwhelming. That's chaotic, and I think that's the thing collectively that we need to be wary of, which I think is why it's fair that Rod Dreher said what he said of like the occult or reenchantment might be a threat, but I think it's a threat if we don't deal with it wisely. I mean, our age lacks wisdom more than anything, so I'm not very optimistic myself, but
Yeah.
I have to be. I am. I always am. Um, I think there's so much beauty to this opening up to us as well. Um, I
I
think
think there's more to experience. There's a depth suddenly that there wasn't before.
it's amazing. It's like it's what I was praying for as a kid. Like, give me some magic, but I was praying for the wrong thing. Like, I just wanted, to fly, and I wanted all my
Right.
toys and stuff like that. But like, there's a truth there. Like, we've been starved for more, and now we're finally getting it. But it's this paradox of life when you really want something, you get too much of it, or you get nothing at all. Like something like that. Um, and I think we need to
Comes and
learn
scares
to,
the shit out of you.
huh?
Then it comes back and scares the shit out of you. Nothing that you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you cannot will these things. I was speaking to Jason about magic as to when or what is Jason is afraid to practice magic because he's afraid of the karmic aspect to it. And I think that there is a goodness to um, understanding the patterns of reality and nature itself and trying to become more natural and becoming in tune with all of that. And I think something like dark magic or black magic is like trying to manipulate that for your own will. I think that's when it goes wrong, and that's when like
Yeah.
these things start biting you back. But if you accord with nature and if you accord with um, God's will in a sense, then then I think you can be a good a good witch.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus in a way that if you're doing it selfishly, that's when it goes wrong.
Yeah, all these tales. I mean, why should
Yeah,
we ignore them?
you probably shouldn't. And, Christians were practicing magic for like up until not that long ago,
Yeah,
without it being condemned or anything, like not the witch trials and stuff. I mean, like people just thought like there was they called them things like cunning folk and things like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they were finding lost treasure or giving you a love potion or lifting curses off of you that maybe like somebody else had cursed your cows or whatever and
yeah,
or your kids and they were like, well, we're gonna come fix this or there's all these stories of especially people in the Appalachians carrying those traditions on for way longer than other people, probably because it was so remote.
yeah,
Um, and it started to just stop at a certain point when people became more connected and more worldly,
yeah,
turning more probably towards materialism. But they were all Christians and they were like overtly Christian. But they also were like, this is just part of life. This is part of existence.
yeah,
We practice like a little bit of magic. They probably didn't call it that. I don't know what they called it, but they were called like cunning folk or sometimes witches, and it wasn't a problem.
yeah. I mean, still,
Yeah.
like Jason would say, like prayer class and little traditions within the church seem like magic, or is this thing where you put a little Jacob, I think, when you build a new house or buy a new house and you bury it, and I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Even that, I mean, you could describe as such. And then curses are really fun because like you can curse someone so easy. It's this scene in Harry Potter. Did you watch like I think it's the last film where Dumbledore shows up in Harry Potter's, I don't know, death. Harry Potter's like he's kind of half death and
Right.
dead, and like Dumbledore is speaking to him, and he makes a point of words being the most magical of all. Um, like you can curse someone by saying that they have something in their teeth or something, or like there's something wrong about their hair, and they'll just like you can take someone's confidence. That's a clear curse. That's a small example, but I think that scales as well into like
Make it count. I had a dream where I was trying to explain. Sorry, I had a dream where I was trying to explain. It's so boring for other people to hear your dreams, but there's a point to it. Okay, I was telling my grandmother, I was trying to explain to her that words are like magic and they can summon things to you.
yeah,
And then I started to levitate off the ground. It was almost like saying that had called something up and it was pulling me off the ground. But it was up into kind of like this beam of light. And I was like, look, and then I started to pray and I got put back down. And I was
yeah,
like, did you see that happen? Like what I was saying, it was like it summoned it. And she was like, oh, no, no, that was just a trick of the light. And I was like, ah, but the thing that I had said in the dream, like words are like magic and they'll summon things, is like I have not consciously thought, I'm
Oh,
not thinking
so
about that. It was
cool.
like something almost that it just came up.
Yeah,
And after I started thinking about it, I'm like, well, that's very true. Like what you said, I mean, what you're saying.
yeah.
Um, and the things that you call into your experience with speech. Um, but anyway, sorry, I just with
No,
those
that's excellent.
levitating
I love
dreams.
that. But isn't
Um,
that wild that sometimes you have that where you have a dream and you'll say something that you've never said in real life, or you understand or explain something that you haven't understood before. I've
yeah.
definitely had that too. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes it's very useful. I mean, like after you think about it for a while, you go, oh, and it starts applying to all these different things in your life,
Yeah,
which, things will do if you pay attention to them. But that's another reason to pay attention to things or not pay attention to things or to speak about things or not speak about things. And then you start understanding why something like gossiping might be really bad,
yeah,
because you're using your speech and attention to summon certain things, or I don't
yeah,
know, it starts getting really weird when you start thinking about it like that. But I mean, you can talk about it like it's magic, or you could be very like utilitarian about it. Or you could probably do like a Peterson move there
yeah,
and dissect it really logically. Um, but you could go either way with that. I mean, it doesn't have to
yeah.
be the other. So
Man, the even my thoughts, I'm very careful with. Like once I started learning the idea in Christianity of like it's not just the laws, it's like your heart needs to be true and well beautiful, let's say, and good. I even when I find myself getting into bad thought patterns, I pray to God. I'm like, bring the light back, bring the light back. Like sometimes, I'm awake for too long at night, and I don't know, you get more suspicious. You get
yeah.
all these dark spirits. They come into you like when while it's darker and all your senses are down and you're like less conscious.
Hmm.
I think in a way, this whole discussion has been about beings, but there's a truth to yeah, there's a truth to independent realities coming and trying to take over your thoughts in just this instance that I'm mentioning. I think that's in like a lighter example of beings entering, and then the specific examples that we're mentioning that we see in our dreams and then perhaps psychedelic experiences, those are just more concrete, more like shining manifested examples, but I think they're on the same
Hmm.
spectrum, let's say. That
Right.
that's
It's
how
like
I'm
they have
thinking.
sharper edges.
Yeah, they have sharper edges. They're more defined.
Hmm.
They've gotten like body to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, my thoughts also like there's all these things fighting for your attention. There's parts of you within yourself, but then there's also uh, things external.
Right. They drift into your experience. And the thing that's not good, like for example, like what you're saying about bad thoughts, I have the same thing. If I wake up in the night, I'm very anxious at night if I
Yeah,
wake up. Always.
likewise.
I feel like you're processing anxieties though when you're sleeping or something
Oh
like that.
yeah, I'm sure.
Um, the other day, I had just a bad mood came over me. I mean, and nothing really seemed to set it off. It just sort of came, and all of a sudden, my thoughts are changing, and they're getting very negative. And I'm like looking at the worst possible side of everything and just feeling really sad and very like that feeling of isolation or aloneness and like separateness from
Yeah,
others.
yeah, yeah,
And I realized that was happening and I go, okay, well, this is a feeling I'm having right now. And, I'll just look at it and probably it will go away, it will just go. But when I was younger, because of the way I think about interacting with these things now is different. When I was younger, I would attach to that and go, because it's like the feeling comes and then it drapes itself over your experience, and you start going like, well, why didn't I have this new thing that I wanted? Or why didn't this work out for me? Or I'm sad about this, and let me rehash old stuff that I wasn't thinking about otherwise. Um, and it's like a blanket that just goes over your life. It's
yeah,
like it hooks onto whatever's available that you
yeah.
might feel a little insecure about or a little sad or whatever. And if I stop feeding it though, if I
Yes.
step back and go, this is just a feeling that I'm having today and it's not me, instead of identifying with it and going like, oh my God, I'm the worst and I failed at this and I failed at that and I really am alone. Nobody likes me. And you start feeding this thing
Yeah.
and then you're stuck with it and then you have it the next day and then it's easier the next time it comes. But now I just kind of step back and go, okay, like today sucks and like probably tomorrow will be better. And it's not really me. It's like this other thing.
Mhm.
And that's what happens the next day. It was fine. And it's like nothing, totally normal again. It's just like this sort of haze that comes over. But if you don't tell anybody, I wish somebody would have told me that
Yeah.
when I was younger because I would have saved myself a lot of
Yeah.
trouble. Um, Thinking that every feeling or thought pattern that I have is me. It's totally not. I don't know where it's coming from. It's totally not me. It doesn't have to be like it's just coming into my realm of
Yeah.
experience.
It's so interesting.
Um,
Like in English, you say like you're angry and you're sad and you're happy. I mean, different languages already express it differently. In some languages, for example, you're not afraid, you have fear. That's what you say. You say it in French, you say it in Spanish. Um, and I think that already can like reframe things for you. But I grew up in that way as well. I was like, oh yeah, you're just a little sad, you're sad, that's what you go through. But there's a reality to that, and there's a reality to you, and you are not all of those things individually. They're part of you, they're connected with you, but they're not, yeah, fully you. That's I like this talk about IFS. I don't know if you've watched any of this, but it's internal family systems. Do you know about it?
I've only heard of it. I don't really know what it is.
Okay. So it's like it's a form of therapy that treats everything it treats you as consisting of parts. So you have different parts to you.
Mhm.
And the idea with internal family systems is to let those parts be understood, to not judge them, to say all parts are, I think they say all parts are good, but sometimes one part can dominate the other, let's say, can dominate your entire being, and it needs to balance out and be placed in its proper uh, in its proper place. And so there was this practice that I did with it, this meditation, where you enter a room with a person that you really dislike or that you get triggered by, and then the part of you that gets triggered, you don't take it with you into that room. And it was a really interesting experience.
Hmm.
So I was trying to like go into that room, leave whatever is like getting angry or irritated at the door, and then go in and see how that interaction goes. And um, then you basically listen to that part. What is it? Why is it screaming? Why is it upset? Why is it triggered? And you enter into a dialogue with it. And yeah, I like this idea because it allows you to not completely dissociate from yourself and the different parts you have. It's not to say like, oh, you are not sadness. Sadness is not you. It's to say build a proper relationship with your feelings, and
Mhm.
that allows you to be properly emotional, let's say.
Yeah,
Because I don't think it's necessarily bad to be emotional or to be angry, to be
right.
that. There's just different. There's a proper time and place.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like active imagination. That sounds like
Oh,
that
yeah.
process. Yeah,
That's so.
that's cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you need all those things. They're going to exist within you. You have to relate to them properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can see that with my son now. He's almost 2 and he's just got these different things go like he can be tired and energetic at the same time.
Yeah.
Those little systems are just they're not integrating together.
Oh, that's wonderful. Um, I think I need to stop relatively soon because I have another one at 8, so that's in 20 minutes. And I have to get some food in. But
Sure.
it's been super nice talking to you again. Do you have
Yeah.
last thoughts to finish with? Things you have to say?
Hmm. Maybe just that it's interesting how it's difficult to even approach the topics because they're so weird. At least
Yeah.
it is for me. It's hard to even get to the conversation that I want to have. It's
Yeah.
like we have to wander for a long time just to get to a place that's the most interesting because it's like just a hard place to get to.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. It's interesting that it's hard to talk about to me. Um, it's noteworthy
Yeah.
that you can't find the language, and if you can't find the language, like where is it? It's like we're thinking about it and experiencing something, but we can't get there with language almost.
Mhm.
So that's kind of interesting. Um, because it took a long time to wander to the spot where I was like, oh, that's the thing that I
Yeah.
want to say. I
And then
couldn't
things
get there
pop
before.
up all of a sudden. You're like, oh wait, this. But you need
Yeah.
to wander in the wilderness for a bit. And you need to give it space. I think that's really good. Like a lot of times, if I just would go about my day normally, I would never even have time to really think about this or yeah, give it a name.
Mm. Right, because you're being in the very conscious world where things are
Yeah,
regularly known, and you just can't get to the weird stuff most of the time unless it comes and hits you.
exactly.
So it's just a hard thing to even, um, I don't know. It's hard to think about, it's hard to talk about, it's hard to collectively maneuver because of that. And I just think that's really interesting, but I also can't, there's nothing to do with it. It's just something I'm noticing. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a
absolutely.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
For being willing to have it,
Yeah,
all
of
the
course.
weird places.
Oh, it's super. I'm speaking to you on Wednesday, is it? Yeah. So those
Okay.
listening, I'll link. I think by the time this airs, our first conversation with Jake will have aired as well.
Oh yeah.
I think that's airing today or something. So Jake Roque, for those listening, I've had him on the channel before. We're doing some conversations and we'll catch up with him. So that's exciting. Thank you so much for talking today, Emilee. And I'll link. Well, I didn't even talked about your work in this episode. Emilee's an artist. Please listen to the first one. I'll show some of her art there, and I'll link all your work down below. So thanks for talking.
Thanks, Lucas.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.